Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Commodore Ubaidullah Sahab, Commodore Babar Bilal Sahab, officers at TMSA, Dr. Malika Khan, ladies and gentlemen. Institute of Policy Studies is holding this webinar today to discuss an important issue that relates to both international relations and maritime. The issue is freedom of navigation operations, especially when it is about patrolling in exclusive economic zones. Before moving further, let me give you a background of the issue. In a recent incident last month, the US Navy announced that one of its warships had conducted a freedom of navigation patrol in Indian waters without New Delhi's prior consent. The US Navy see the maneuvers consistent with international law, challenging India's excessive maritime claims. India reacted by expressing concern over the move, but did not say if the US warship was challenged during its passage. The prior consent to which the US Navy refers appears to be a bone of contention between the two countries. In its statement, India said it believed the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea does not authorize other states to carry out military exercises or maneuvers, in particular those involving the use of weapons or explosives, without the consent of the coastal state in either its exclusive economic zone or on the continental shelf. Well, UN Convention on the Law of the Sea defines a country's exclusive economic zone as the area in which it has sovereign rights for the purpose of exploring and exploiting, conserving and managing the natural resources. Although the move is significant, it is not uncommon. A closer look at the freedom of navigation operation patrol conducted by the US Navy over the years shows that these have been aimed at challenging many countries' maritime claims, including partners and allies. Between October 2019 and September 2020, that is in just 1 year, the US challenged the excessive maritime claims of 19 countries, including Brazil, Japan, Malaysia, South Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, and mainland China. The US Navy conducted a similar patrol in Sri Lanka's exclusive economic zone on 3rd of April, just days before the operation in Indian waters on 7th of April. It also challenged South Korea's excessive baseline claim on 31st of March. Now, to understand the implications of the recent developments against a backdrop of regional dynamics, we have organized this webinar today. We will discuss issues and legalities related to freedom of navigation operations patrol. We are lucky to have with us today retired Commodore Syed Muhammad Ubaidullah, Sitara-e-Imtiaz Military, who will enlighten us on all aspects of this issue. His talk will be followed by comments by retired Commodore Babar Bilal, Sitara-e-Imtiaz Military, and other panelists and discussants. Luckily, we have a panel of distinguished scholars and practitioners to deliberate on the topic today. Let me welcome all of them, as well as our other worthy participants to this webinar. Now, I request retired Commodore Syed Muhammad Ubaidullah Sahab to give his keynote address.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Abrar Zain Saab. A very kind of IPS, Institute of Policy Studies, to have given me this opportunity to talk on a very current and most interesting subject not only to the regional countries, but all over the world. I'm also very grateful to Nawafil Saab and also Hafiz Inam Saab for coordination and bringing all of us to this particular forum to talk about this. The concept of the paper has been spelled out by Ambassador Abrar and very well said that this is the time that we have to look at it, its implication regionally, internationally, and more so for Pakistan. I'm also my salam goes to all the other participants, particularly my friends from NEMA, Babar Bilal Saab and others from MSA. It's good to be among friends and among those who have this topic very close to their heart. Without further ado, let me get to the essence of the whole thing. After having heard from Sayyid Saab all the concept of this particular webinar, ladies and gentlemen, of course, I'm sorry I forgot about Malia Khan. She's also there, a very well known and well researched person in this field, and also other maritime issues that we have been meeting each other on various forums. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been living in a multipolar world, particularly after the Second World War. And until early 1990s, we had that privilege of multipolar world. And in that multipolar world, there was an Eastern Bloc and a Western Bloc, primarily USSR at that time. And of course, US and NATO countries and other Western countries in the other bloc. But after the demise of USSR to Russia, we, by design or by default, came to a unipolar world where USA was the predominant power, the unipower of the world, and whatever it takes, and the unquestionable command and leadership of the world with the US. Both in all fields of economy, military, political influence, diplomacy, and they enjoyed a full influence over the world affairs. The rise of China in these domains in the last 1 decade or so has really challenged the status quo in all these segments. And with the reduced stability, or I should say little improved stability of Russia in the current decade, it has challenged the status quo of unipolar world and leadership of US. As the Foreign Secretary of US said, and I quote, maybe not in so many words, but very close to it, he said, and I quote here, the biggest geopolitical test of 21st century is China. Engage China from position of strength with allies. China is the only country with economic, diplomatic, military, and technological power which can change world stable value system as we see them today. And we want to maintain that value system all over the world as it was, or it is so-called, at least at this time. In my opinion, this is the central theme of US Navy, of freedom of navigation Operation Patrol, to pass through EEZ of various countries to give a loud and a clear message that US continues to be the leader of the world, and all efforts will be directed, including freedom of navigation Operation Patrol, FONOP. This is not the only thing. The concept of freedom of navigation Operation Patrol is not a new idea. This was first used after Second World War and continued to take different shapes, and finally by the democratic government of President Obama in 2016, a document was issued with the same context of freedom of navigation operation patrol. What prompted democratic government of President Obama to do that was mainly China's growing influence politically, economically, and otherwise all over the world. And also, this is not the first time that US probably has crossed the Indian EEZ without a consent, pre-consent, etc. But the difference mainly lies here by issuing of a message or an open signal, not only to India, but to entire world, that in the eyes of law, according to US, that in the eyes of law of UNCLOS, this is not a privilege for India to declare that any particular ship, merchant or warship passing through EEZ must get a concurrence or their approval indirectly while passing through. While the Indians think differently, and it caused real embarrassment to Modi government in the face of being a strategic friend and an ally. And by the way, we all know that USA is not a signatory to UNCLOS until today, but they keep referring it to UNCLOS, both in terms of South China Sea and now recently in case of crossing into EEZ of other countries. India took it with more than a pinch of salt, particularly this message, because of a number of reasons. Firstly, obviously, because of being a strategic partner in many ways in the whole of Indo-Pacific region, be it the containment of China, be it the control of sea lines of communication, or be it the control of choke points. Indian Maritime Strategic Security Document of October 2015 is another really a document which puts salt on this wound to create that what India aspires to be in the Modi government, and then what it is being treated to. कि उनके साथ क्या हाथ हुआ है, उन्होंने बहुत ज्यादा महसूस किया जब ये सिग्नल सामने आया. Otherwise, it has been a continuous routine in the past many years. The other reasons is that India thinks, and rightly so in that sense, that most of their export and import are on the Indian Ocean. So they think, and also from this is geo-economic point of view, and then they think that deep sea exploration, which is spelled out very well in detail in the Indian Maritime Security Strategy document, that they would like deep sea exploration and the security of the area, because they have an EEZ of 2.4 million square kilometer. By the way, Pakistan का जो EEZ है और continental shelf दोनों मिला के 2,90,000 square kilometer है, which may be a big area. I mean, almost like the area of a little less than Balochistan area. But think of 2.4 million square kilometer. And then from Indian perspective, particularly the Indian Maritime Security Document, strategy document, when there are 3 or 4 different distinct parts which make them feel the boss of the area, or even to an extent to go beyond that and to say in so many words that we need to control the sea lines of communication of Pacific and Indian Ocean. We need to control all the 9 choke points of the Indian Ocean, which they have spelled out. And I just, for the sake of your participant, spell out these, although most of them are well known to all of us. In the Western Indian Ocean, there are 5 choke points they have identified. Of course, the Strait of Hormuz, Babul Mandab, Suez Canal itself, Mozambique Channel, and Cape of Good Hope. And 4 in the Eastern Indian Ocean, that's Malacca Strait, Sunda Strait, Lombok Strait, and Ombai or Vetternary Strait. They have spelled out in so many words that India needs to have a control of these choke points between on both sides towards Pacific and Indian Ocean, and at the same time control sea lanes of communication in the entire of Indo-Pacific Ocean. Similarly, on the security issue, same thing has been, or similar attitude has been spelled out to become a superpower by adding from 137 naval units in Indian Navy to 200 units in 2027. Although this very ambitious goal may not be achieved, and it has already been reduced officially from 200 units to 175 units because of the paucity of fund, and because their budget, which was 18% in 2013 and 12, has now reduced to 13%. So it may further shrink. But what I'm trying to say with this Indian maritime security strategy policy or document, that here is a country which has this big EEZ and its coastline over 3,000, and its aspirations to become a regional power, if not superpower immediately. And somebody else is trying to pass through, and declared objectives are being contested by them. So really, they are thinking of creating third fleet command, and they are also thinking of going in the South Pacific, maybe to Fiji Island, and they are also thinking of upgrading their listening post in Seychelles, and etc., etc. So they might, and they are looking for 2 conceptual areas. One is sea control and the other is sea denial. Sea control, they want to do it in collaboration with the other countries. And for that, they need bases. They think they will go as far south to Indonesia and also to Penang and Maldives, including Trincomalee in the south of and the Sri Lankan port. So these are those areas. They want to have bases from Cape of Good Hope up to Mombasa, and across that on the eastern Indian Ocean side to Trincomalee and Maldives and Penang, etc. So with these powers or aspiration to this level of power, and their own friend and strategic partner is doing, and then of course telling all over the world, because this message was primarily meant for India as well as all over the world, because they have been crossing even through mainland China's EEZ. So these areas and these things do matter, and they have reflected on it. The other areas where I was to so the major reason why is this now so boldly and loudly in the international media? In my humble opinion, the whole concept or majority of the reason revolve along the thinking of maintaining world leadership in political and other many domains. But we know that by in 2013, by that time, the power which once had with the European Union was shifted to US, North America, and the power and wealth has already shifted to Asia. And in Asia, of course, China plays a major important role. And of course, India is doing something similar. In the recent context of Quad and Malabar exercises. The similar thinking is working to ensure the net result is the world leadership. So Quad exercise, Malabar exercises, which were happening from 1992 until today, 24th of this series, in which in November 2020, 2020, when all the four participated, became almost like a military wing of Quad. And Quad Summit in March 12, 2021 spelled out everything scientific to medical to manufacture to industry to all climate change, but did not speak a word of country China, which really shows that Joe Biden's aspirations or would like to continue as a leader of this is not through military confrontation anywhere, including China. Rather, it would like to do something more differently than this. The result in front of them is very much there, that in the face of China and India's land dispute, they have pulled back from their positions, and the economy, which is intertwined between the Americans, the Chinese, and the Indians, will push them back. And they have already arrived to a conclusion that military confrontation is not and will not take them anywhere. So it is the negotiation, it is the talk which will, and it was very obvious from the joint statement of Quad as well as other forum which we have heard. So the question is, why did they do it? It has been done in the past from 1940s, 14s, and then up to this place. Only difference is now they have put their foot down that our interpretation, according to Article 19 and according to Article 24 of UNCLOS, it is very much a legal thing to pass through somebody else's EEZ, whereas India thinks differently. So it's a question of interpretation, which will define Article 19, 24, and one more, which will define legal basis of this, because it gives a very big list of conditions that under these conditions, even warship and the military aircraft can pass without taking any permission or concurrence from the country concerned. But at the same time, there are responsibility of the countries going through, and there are responsibilities for the coastal states. As far as Pakistan is concerned, we have 12 nautical mile of territorial waters and then 290,000 square kilometer of EEZ. I will be very happy to listen to other people, and I would not like to continue with this. My talk that how or at all it has already affected us, and our line to take is in accordance with UNCLOS, which will permit EEZ or otherwise. So I leave that to forum to discuss, and we can talk in question answer session more on the aspect of how it has been highlighted at such a high level now by the world community, rather than 19-20 countries EEZ have been crossed by the American friends and foe both, and they have not been any problem to an extent of this level which has come. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Commodore Badullah sir, for a comprehensive talk. It was really interesting and informative, and so many things that we learned today from you. Before we move on to our discussion on this, I'll request Commodore Babar Bilal, Sitara-e-Imtiaz Military, who is director at NEMA, to offer his comments.
Thank you, sir. First of all, let me congratulate IPS for holding this small discussion on a very important topic which may concern us also in the longer run. And then secondly, you asked me to speak after my divisional officer, my cadet admin officer of the academy time. So I was cadet with Sir Vadala and I will be talking later than him. So it is honor as well as challenge to speak on the subject. Going with this Vadala's speech, I take this subject from different angle. And let me first refresh our memories about the maritime zones, which is the basically board of contention. Maritime zones are measured from the baseline. We all know what is baseline. Then there is some internal waters. So internal waters are the area which is inward of the baseline and towards the land. Like in Pakistan, areas we connect the Cape Coast with the Pakistan coastline. So all this Bidani beach, Bidani area is part of the internal waters. From the baseline, we start measuring the distances. 12 nautical miles is territorial sea. In territorial sea, air, surface, subsurface, and seabed is the sole property of the coastal state. That means anything, any activity, any innocent passage has to be, it is like a piece of land. The borders, limits of the coastal states extends to the 12 nautical miles. So nobody can violate that. Even if during the Falkland Wars, once the Britishers enforced the quarantine on the Argentina, that was also done outside the up to 12 nautical miles. And the General Belgrano, the ship which was sank by the Britishers, the cruiser ships, the Argentinian Navy, that was operating just 1 mile outside that square. That is 13 miles. It was operating and that was sunk. So this thing is to be registered that these 12 miles, all 4 columns, air, surface, subsurface, and seabed is the sole property of the coast. Next, what we terminology we will bring in is the contiguous zone. Contiguous zone is from 0 to 24 miles where the fiscal, custom, police, these laws are implemented. But it is only for this purpose. But the limits of the coast ends at 12 nautical miles. Thereafter, another terminology is the EEZ. That is from the 0 to 200 nautical miles. The EEZ is basically the seabed is yours, the water body is yours, but for only for the fishing purpose in the EEZ. Likewise, the seabed mining, the seabed exploitation, the mineral extraction, the coastal state has the right. But the surface of the water, innocent passage on the surface of water is not controlled by you. So that means anybody moving the ships on the surface of water from 12 nautical miles to 200 nautical miles, they are legitimate. Their movement is legitimate. But courteously, usually the warships, when passing closer to the coast, they inform the road state, but they are not obliged to do so. The practical example is there are a number of foreign ships operating just outside Gwadar and Pasni for last 20 years under the garb of the security parameters. So they are operating close to Pakistani coast inside the EEZ, and they are operating the helicopters, they are doing everything. But they are not obliged to tell us because they are doing some international operations in that area to serve that. Then the contingent, the extension shelf which we talk of, but Pakistan also has got now 50,000 kilometers. In that, only the seabed is yours. The surface of water, the air column, and the water column is the property of the international community. Only seabed mining you have the right to do it, and only some sedimentary fishing you can do it. But everybody can do fishing in that area in the rest of the country. So these now the problem with the Indians and the Americans, which America created, America does not recognize UNCLOS. Once they don't recognize, so they have the freedom to move here and there. So they are the public global player, they are the global power. They wanted to show to Indians, number one, who is the master of the world. That was their purpose. Because India was trying to show some resentment or showing their power in Indian Ocean. India thinks Indian Ocean is India's ocean. So America, time and again, and I gave that sermon to every friend and foe that I am the boss. So you have to follow me. Secondly, once Indian interests, once you go through their policy, with Commodore Barilla also mentioned about the bank 2015 policy. Indian initially used to talk of the Indian Ocean as the area of interest and influence. Now their area of interest is Indian Ocean, but sorry, India area of influence is Indian Ocean, but area of interest they have gone to the Pacific and the Atlantic also, and the all Red Sea, Mediterranean Sea. This is all area which you see the map in their policy. So they are talking of the global level. So they wanted to show it to the objecting on the Americans that this is our area of interest or area of influence and you are in. On the other side, America is also doing the same thing, that I am the global leader, so you need not to check. It may be a lesson or the message to the Chinese also, that tomorrow they will be going to South China Sea and we will be doing the same thing. Or there is another aspect which may be conspiracy theory, or this is my personal assessment. India always uses such activities in benefit and for the home audience. 1965 war, Pakistan-India war, Navy attacked Dwarka. It was a small navigation radar picking up only 12 nautical miles, very insignificant. Pakistan Navy destroyed it. They made so much hue and cry after that 65 war that we are unsafe. And from 65 to 71 war, Indian Navy prospered leaps and bounds compared to Army and Air Force. They had the issue, they exploited it for the internal audience, and they used this. And then 71 war, the missile boats which attacked Karachi, it was basically initially offered to Pakistan, we refused and India got it, and we got the aid. In 71 war, we sank the two Kukri and one of the Japan was injured. Based on that, they created another that we do not have a quality submarines. We should go for the nuclear submarines. They planned it, now they are planning for 5 nuclear submarines, 24 normal submarines, etc. So this is also for the domestic audience. Look at this latest issue in the ones, the Ajmal Kasab issue and the Mumbai issue. They said that the boat went from Karachi to Mumbai, 600 nautical miles, boat traveled on the surface, fishing boat. Again, they exploited the issue that our coastal navies be, or MS, the Coast Guard be. So this is their way of doing it. They deliberately objected on the American action. The purpose may be something else in for domestic audience. Thirdly, there was some hue and cry because of the COVID issue. People in the politics, in the Indian governance, they were criticizing the Americans, they are not sending help. So this issue, if you connect with this also, the Americans taught them the actual lesson that look, we are the boss, do not criticize us in public. Although now they are sending about $100 million aid to India. Again, the Quad, Sir Badal also mentioned about the Quad team. There is a relationship between China and Japan also. Japan is not ready yet to openly criticize Chinese as support American or the Australians or the Indians in South China Sea, because China lives next door to China. Japan lives next to China. So this is another politics which is going on. Myanmar issue is very heating up. Yesterday also news was in Myanmar. What is happening is we all know about we are all students of international relations or studies. It was basically army supported by the China and Russia, whereas the political people was being supported by the Americans. The fight is on. Fight is for the access, the pipeline, the oil, gas, and pipeline which has been constructed and operational, passing through Myanmar and giving the oil and gas to the southeastern China. And that is basically taking care of about 6% of the Chinese oil requirements. So dependence on Malacca state for Chinese is about 88%. So 6% is being addressed to this Myanmar only. So this is now next stage you will see the American ships will be operating closer to the Myanmar waters. They will maybe entering this area. And under the garb of helping people because the army is shooting them, this and that. So American army, they create the environment, they teach others, they check the, what do you say that the red lines, where are the red lines? They check with the Indians, they check with the Sri Lankans, all friend and foe, they're checking where are the red lines. And lastly, once we go for what is the benefit for Pakistan, let's this happen. But there is no news that there was actual firing was done, actual news was done by the Americans, or there was an actual flying operation was done. The only one I have is that a freedom of navigation operation was done. That is passing of ship to the particular area. Benefit to Pakistan is Pakistan now under the same guard, Pakistan, India cannot challenge Pakistan merchant fleet or other ships operating passing through the same similar areas. Because now precedence is being set in this environment. That under the UNCLOS also, EEZ is open for the freedom of navigation. So Pakistan cannot exploit it. Like India also, I think 5-6 years back, India had Pakistani merchant ship for 3-4 days under the for HMCR violation that they suspected that we are carrying missiles from China, etc. But this can be challenged because now any ship passing through easy of any country, the host country should not touch it. But the problem is whether you have the force to enforce this, where the MSA will come into play or Pakistan will play their role. But Pakistan can always benefit out of these two, this incident. This is a benefit which will come to us if we can really exploit it. And thirdly, this also signifies that the Lakshadweep India or the Indian borders are yet to be demarcated clearly and accepted by the UNCLOS that this is the area, because there is always a problem when there is a issue of definition of boundary limits. So America may be exploiting that also. And finally, I think this was the mini bugger between India and America. They are doing it something naughty game, and they are just showing it to the world that we are little having it. Just after this or before this, they were having a very long-term naval relations. So this is probably a pre-planned game which has been played closer to the culture divide. That's all from my side, and we can further discuss on the time permits. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander Baba Bilal Sahab, for your comments. And now we are open for question and answers or any comments by the other discussants and panelists. I believe there are some officers at PMSA. Dr. Malika Khan is also there. And we have also Professor Samina Qureshi from Karachi University. So the floor is open. Yes, someone from PMSA?
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Sir, I am Commander Faisal, and I am joined by Commander Abdullah, who is the Director of Operations. And his number 2 is also here, Lieutenant Commander Faisal, and Lieutenant Taimur is with us. Sir, with respect to, we had heard your long discussions and talks. They are very informative and eye-openers. But what I believe, sir, that do you think that a country like India, who is having all the hegemonic designs and with the vision to become the leader in the maritime field of Indian Ocean, or maybe beyond that, as they were telling us that they are looking towards the choke points and influence the complete area. Do you think that they can like misplay this, or to say this, that the Americans have done this violation, just for the sake of putting the people's direction towards something else? Can they go for this? This is the question basically, because we know that US is not has not ratified this UNCLOS, so it is irrelevant for them. They go everywhere and they can do whatever they want. And we have seen their operations. I've been to their ships. I've seen their carriers roaming around. They do whatever they want to. They exploit the corridors, the fairways, wherever they want, and they do the operations in the landlocked countries as well. We know all of this. So isn't it a misplayed adventure by the Indians that the Americans have violated and they have gone for this this protest sort of a thing?
You would like Commodore Bedula to answer it or Commodore Babar Dela?
Sir, the first one, sir, Commodore Ubat.
Okay. Thank you very much for your very good question. One minute. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. My whole talk revolved around why did the Americans do it? Do they have a hidden agenda, as Commodore Babar Bilas said in his opinion? Or is it something that they are getting onto that in the near future, things may get a little higher temperature at seas, particularly in South China Sea, where we had 2 aircraft carriers for the first time exercising in South China Sea in July 2020. And then we had this exercise, Malabar, in which the American carrier and the Indian carrier participated near Bay of Bengal. And the third aspect is, as we know, that the Fifth Fleet is based in the Persian Gulf, and there is likelihood of carrier and other forces more frequently visiting Pacific Ocean, more so, and more specifically South China Sea. So the likely possibility of military, US military assets, mainly aircraft and helicopter and ships and submarines, passing through EEZ of a number of countries, there may not be any resistance by taking the cover of law. And very rightly explained by Commodore Bilal that also I agree with that opinion. Well, we have that anyone passing through Pakistan EEZ, not firing or not carrying out maneuvers as such, can pass through, because he has very well defined that water belongs to whom and the seabed belongs to whom, and innocent passage or passage through EEZ. So my whole thing revolved around that this action, I may be wrong, is not a conspiracy theory to get to something bigger which is coming ahead. But in my opinion, overall posture of the Joe Biden government is to maintain leadership of the world. The attitude or the values which are there, in which US plays the predominant role, must continue, while I think the Chinese ever expanding influence in technical and technological and military and economical and political influence over the world, particularly after OBOR or Road and Belt Initiative, cannot be stopped now. It's too late. So realizing this, in every formal forum, more recently, 100 days of Joe Biden's address to the world and to their nation, very clearly spelled out no threat from China as far as military is concerned. And in other words, no military confrontation, and US will compete with China while developing infrastructure for which they have put billions and billions of dollars. So this has been happening. They have already crossed through India. They have already crossed 3 days before through Sri Lanka and other 19 countries, including China. Not much has been done and will not be done as long as they, as long as they take cover of law, because in interpretation, it is very much allowed. And also, let me correct, probably it was said that it is only the ship passing through the EEZ. All air, as far as the Americans are concerned, all aircraft, military aircraft, helicopter, and ship have the right to pass through EEZ of another country. So this is what the Americans want. And you are right to say, Commander Faisal, that India's aspirations are far too big for various reasons, rightly placed or otherwise. They are moving into that direction, and they have spelled it out in their maritime security strategy document. Where are they leading? In 3 distinct parts: geoeconomic, security, and geopolitical. And they say so by giving this particular logic that we are such, our strategic orientation in the Indian Ocean is such that to the east of India, they can control very easily, and to west of India, they can. And that's the reason they have found places and looking for further places as their bases, and with the help of their other partners. Malabar is another thing. Milan exercises are other thing. वो भी 1995 से हो रही हैं. और Milan exercises में कौन participate कर रहा है? All those countries which are not bothered by the expanding influence of the US have participated in the Milan exercise, to name so many countries that I can, including Indonesia and Malaysia and Singapore and Australia. And although this is a networking exercise, but it has power, and they want to expand this power, clearly defining their role and objective to Indo-Pacific region. And there is a very good reason for being interested in Indo-Pacific region. Mind you, there are only 3 countries in the world. इसका वो हो रही है, battery down. There are only 3 countries in the world which have the biggest stake in the Indo-Pacific region. And that has compelled you, that is of course India, China, and US. And that has compelled USA to move away from active activities in NATO, in Atlantic, in European Union, and come to Pacific or Indo-Pacific, and more importantly, Western Pacific Ocean. So this is, I am sorry, this is a long answer to your very good question. I hope I tried to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vedula Sahab, for this detailed response. Now the floor is again open. If there are any questions, any comments.
There is someone. Attorney Muslim bin Aqil has a question.
Okay, Attorney Muslim bin Aqil has a question. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. This is Muslim bin Aqil, Admiralty and Maritime Lawyer, and I'm teaching International Law at National Defense University. Today we have esteemed guests over here, so I would want to have the honor to ask a couple of questions that I always feel ambiguous. And since Ubaidullah Saab and Commodore Saab, they all are here, I think my questions can be addressed at this forum. So my very first question is that the maritime security strategy of Pakistan to counter Indian Navy in the Indian Ocean is a hot debated topic. Whenever I'm talking about the maritime laws over here in Pakistan, we are interpreting the United Nations Conventions on the Laws of Seas. So maritime security strategy comes very first. So what is the maritime security strategy of Pakistan to counter Indian and Indian Navy in the Indian Ocean? So my second question is threats that are faced by Pakistan due to the Indian maritime security that right now Mr. Honorable Commodore Ubaidullah has talked about, IMS 2015 and Pakistan, its correlation. So recently, we had a meeting on the maritime with the Honorable Minister for Human Rights, Dr. Shiri Mazari. She posed the word in front of the Director General, National Institute of Maritime Affairs, about the Indian Ocean, that is the Afro-Asian Ocean. Sir, how do you see that term and how much this is valid? Because I believe the fact only the Indian Ocean, apart from the history, saying Indian Ocean establishes a hegemon of only one land, one piece of land, while I believe that this is the contemporary era of multilateralism.
Commodore,
Thank you, sir.
You have heard the questions of probably Mr. Binati. Over to you. Sir, please open your mic.
Sir, your mic is mute.
It's still mute. No, we can't hear you. Not yet. Not yet.
Sorry? इसको disconnect कर.
Yes.
सर आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही.
I can hear you, but you can't hear.
Sir, you are clear now.
Okay. So that question was for me.
Yes, sir. That would be best addressed by you.
I was thinking, and rightly so, was thinking that Babar Bilal is well placed to give you an answer. No, seriously, and I would request Commodore Babar Bilal to kindly address this question of IN versus PN maritime strategy, and also the threat to Pakistan in view of their strategy.
Okay, thank you, sir, for posing confidence in my knowledge with whatever little I have. First question was Pakistan maritime security strategy. I'm sorry to say that Pakistan does not have a formal national security strategy or national security policy. If it is there, it may be in some it has not been made public till today. Until unless you have a national policy, then you bring take out this maritime security strategy or land security strategy. Whatever the security strategy Pakistan Navy or MSA or anybody is making, we are at IT, so we do not have that theory, but we can only comment from the appearance. Pakistan Navy is now focusing on all four dimensions: air, surface, subsurface, and the marines. They are accumulating some ships, long-range weapons, missiles, and Pakistan is also the submarines. They have contracted submarines from China, which will start coming, I think, next year onwards, 23, and till 2030, we will get all 8. But at the same time, we will be retiring the present fleet also. So numbers will remain constant. Pakistan has always followed a brown water navy concept, that we are more concerned about the coastal areas and the areas, the journey areas, maybe 200-300 nautical miles south, 400 nautical south. And our area of interest may be the Indian Ocean, but area of influence is very limited because of the sources which we have. But I now understand that Pakistan needs to look into increase the area of interest also. It is now my area of interest that the coal is coming from Indonesia, Edible oil is coming from Malaysia, coal is coming from South Africa, even the South America, we are getting some raw material. Now LNG is coming from the Qatar. So all my whatever the energy resources are imported energy resources, and they are coming through the sea, the stocks. Any hindrance in import of oil, edible oil, gas, or coal. Look at the fact: 72% of the Pakistan energy generation is through the imported energy. That means if we do not get a ship of coal every 5-6 days, you will not feel the pinch today. But after 3 weeks, when the existing stocks of the coal finishes, you will not be running with your Saiwal coal plant or the Gadani coal plant. What will happen is you will have a shortage of your water pumps will not run. So water will your homes. So it will have a cascading effect on the national security. Likewise, in 2018, Pakistan imported 908 ships for the to import energy only. Oil, gas, coal, and edible oil. That makes about 2.7 ships a day. We were docking in Pakistan and disembarking the cargo. Any hindrance in that is the concern for the national security. That is our national security. Our the governing elite must understand this is the national security. Anything which is not there, gas is not there, oil. Remember 2 or 3 months back, the oil shortage was there just for 4 or 5 days when people started coming out on the roads. So these are the things. But unfortunately, nobody shares this maritime security strategy. There is no paper available like the Americans, and keep this thing in mind. Whatever papers which we see in the media, the electronic media, the internet, these are only cosmetics. The Americans, the Japanese, the Armenians, whatever they place in front of you, published, it is only to say something, but actually the meanings are different. There's nobody shares their classified plans and roles or missions. They just share it for the goodness that we can do. Coming back to the Afro-Asian Ocean. First thing, Indian Ocean. What India or India what is derived from the word originally from the Hindu. Long time back, this area, subcontinent area, the first population of the people living were close to this Indus River. All the populations were the Harappa, Mundidaro, they used to call this Indus River as Sindhu. That is the name of the Indus River. But when the Aryans or the Persians came and the Afghanis came, they could not pronounce that word correctly. So they shared the word S. They made it Hindu. So they made it Hindu living people in this whole subcontinent. From Hindu to it, H was also shaded in during the process. The word Indo came into it. And from Indo to Indian Ocean. So once we say that India ceased to exist for me, 1947, 14 when there were 2 nations created, Pakistan and Bharat. Unfortunately, we always use the word India for Bharat. We should say Bharat and Pakistan. But India, once we say India, India is the 47, the whole subcontinent, and the Indian Ocean was derived from that word Indo. So this is a historical fact, and we have a research paper on this also in Lima. So secondly, changing the name of Indian Ocean. Who will do it? Who will work with you to support this cause? Change. If you want to change the name of any place in any Indian Ocean, etc., there's a procedure. IHO has some 68-member council, out of which majority vote has to vote for the change. And then once you recognize that this change has occurred, like the Southern Ocean, Antarctica Ocean has been renamed as the Southern Ocean some time back. But that procedure was adopted out of 28, I think 15, 16 said yes, 12 said no. So majority gained the win. But The only promulgated official document by IHO is of 1952 or 53. Thereafter, there is no consensus. There have been more than 100 changes in the names and nomenclature of different areas, and so this call for Afro-Asian Ocean, I totally disagree with the madam who are presiding on the other day, Madam Shri Mazari, that we should call Afro-Asian Ocean. Africa is not calling for change of name. Middle East, nobody will walk with Pakistan. Look at the reality on ground. Who will move with us? It is that we propose a thing and we will be simply given a shut up call later on. It is not possible. And secondly, once you raise this issue that this Indian Ocean, India's ocean linked with India, you are going into the trap of Indians that this Indian Ocean is India's ocean. Whereas I claim it that this is a Pakistani ocean. This word has been derived from this Sindhu, Hindu, and India. So this is our word, and we are, even if we are not, the word is not there, but we are the simultaneously we have the ownership of this word and Indian Ocean. Because as soon as you speak against this word, Indian stance of India's ocean will solidify. So before moving to such an extent, Ambassador Saab is sitting here, until unless you have a surety on the diplomatic front that this motion will succeed, I think it is not advisable to put the things in front of the leader. This is my opinion. Thank you.
Can I add a little bit here?
Please go ahead.
Can you? First of all, thank you very much, Commodore Bilal. You came to the right forum and rightly described the entire issue. I have only 1 or 2 points to add with your permission. People are very genuinely interested when India is expanding at a very fast pace its military, include particularly naval assets. You have very rightly said so. India has been able to convince their own government that the grand strategy lies in the maritime strategy and which encompasses all aspects of economy, political, as well as geostrategic. You very rightly said that after 1965 war, they were able to capitalize on their defeat and the destruction of Dwarka because a lot of questions were raised to the Navy. The naval chief and the naval bosses in the ministry were ordered to come and explain the reason why for their very poor performance. As a result, Indian Navy share for many years was bigger than Indian Air Force and Army. And the people like Akil are very rightly concerned कि भाई उन्होंने तो अभी 2015 में एक नई स्ट्रेटजी निकाल ली है. उनकी ओरिजिनल स्ट्रेटजी तो 2007 में थी और उसके खदोखाल डिफेंसिव थे. अपनी कोस्ट को डिफेंड करना, अपनी ऑफशोर ऑयल रिग को डिफेंड करना, अपने मेनलैंड को डिफेंड करना, on using naval diplomacy and political tools as the main power of India. It is no more there. In 2015, the central theme of the new policy is the use of hard power. And in that hard power, 3 segments. And one is make a force of 5 carrier group. Next is take the other units to 200 number in the Navy. And the third and the most important is sea-based nuclear deterrence, comprising a combination of nuclear powered, nuclear armed, and diesel electric submarine force of 30 submarines. तो ये जो डिफरेंस आया है इतना बड़ा from 2007 to 2015 and use of the hard force is definitely has increased threat to Pakistan and to an extent to China. And their main focus of all this is towards China. When they say sea control, they really means the control of South China Sea Chinese fleet from entering into Indian Ocean from Bay of Bengal. That's why they have already got into an agreement with Japan to make a seawall at the entrance of Bay of Bengal, electronic seawall, to stop the movement of the Chinese submarine into Indian Ocean. That's why they have developed a smart torpedo, which is subsonic flight with thousands of kilometers away range. So there is a threat, and a very prominent threat, and a much increased than previously. So what do? अरे भाई, हम तो 1947 से लेके आज तक कभी भी अददी बुनियाद पे नहीं लड़े. हम जज्बे से लड़े हैं, ट्रेनिंग से लड़े हैं, प्रोफेशनलिज्म से लड़े हैं, एंड अबव ऑल अपनी अल्लाह पर तवक्कुल करके लड़े हैं. भाई 65 वॉर में भी हम 1:4 थे, और हमने घर जाके 5 किलोमीटर पे उनके जाके टेरिटोरियल वाटर में जाके गोले फेंके. गोलियां नहीं थी, हर गोला जो था वो 120 पाउंड का गोला था, 35,000 एमुनिशन, और वो भी कौन सा, जिसकी बेस के ऊपर लिखा था रॉयल इंडियन नेवी ऑर्डिनेंस. वो गोले फेंक के आए थे. भाई ये कौन सोच सकता है? ये कोई अकल लॉजिक काम करती है कि 1:4 की रेशो से 200 मील दूर जाके ये काम करके आ जाएं? ये नहीं सोच सकते. इसी तरह 71 की वॉर में ये गाजी गई और उन जहाजों को टारगेट किया जिनका काम सबमरीन को डुबोने का है, किरपान एंड कुकरी, और ये भी उन्हीं के इलाके में हुआ, उनके घर के बराबर में. उस वक्त भी हम 1:4 थे. तो हमसे या किसी भी मिलिट्री ऑफिसर से ये एक्सपेक्ट करना कि भाई वो तो 5 कैरियर बना रहे हैं, 30 सबमरीन बना रहे हैं, 200 यूनिट बना रहे हैं, आप क्या कर रहे हो? हमारे एस्पिरेशन, हमारी रिक्वायरमेंट, हमारी जरूरत और हमारी जितना जेब इजाजत दे रही है हम वो कर रहे हैं, और वही करते रहेंगे. वी विल नेवर बी एबल टू कम टू गन फॉर गन एंड मिसाइल फॉर मिसाइल एंड स्ट्रेटेजी फॉर स्ट्रेटेजी. कि भाई उन्होंने स्ट्रेटेजी बनाई है, हम भी इसमें एक ऐसी स्ट्रेटेजी बनाते हैं, हम भी बहुत बड़ी पावर है. ये ना कर सकते थे, फाइनेंशियली ना कर सकते हैं. जो हमारी अददी बुनियाद को उसी तरह डेटर करती है दुश्मन को जिस तरह हमारी लैंड फोर्सेस और एयर फोर्सेस हैं. हमने इन्हीं छोटी फोर्स के साथ तो भाई ये अभी पाकिस्तान एयर फोर्स ने उनके 2 तैयारों को बोला, भाई जितने तैयारे मारेंगे उतने कप चाय पिलाएंगे हम आपको, आइए ले आइए और तैयारे, हम चाय भी पिलाएंगे. तो भाई कौन सी स्ट्रेटेजी है ये कोई जरा काबिले अमल स्ट्रेटेजी या क्या कहते हैं उसको, कोई लिखत पढ़त वाली स्ट्रेटेजी बताती है आपको ये? तो घबराने की बात नहीं है. इंशाल्लाह हमारे जो एस्पिरेशन है, हमारा 25 मिलियन मीट्रिक टन ऑयल आता है, और अगर वो भी लगा लें खाने का तेल तो 26-27 मिलियन टन हो गया. सिवाय खाने के तेल के सारा तेल तो पर्शियन गल्फ से आता है और गैस भी यहीं से आती है. वो हमने डेवलपमेंट रिमेनिंग विद इन आवर मीन्स, रिमेनिंग विद इन आवर शूज, पूरे कोस्ट को डेवलप कर दिया है. पाकिस्तान मरीन इज द ओनली फोर्स, आई होप ओनली फोर्स इन द वर्ल्ड, कि पाकिस्तान नेवी का हिस्सा होते हुए पाक मरीन जो है वो फिजिकल होल्डिंग ग्राउंड है वहां पर इंडिया के बॉर्डर के साथ. ये ज्यादातर लोगों को नहीं पता, वो तो समझ रहे हैं कि भाई हलवाड़ा सेक्टर, जामनगर सेक्टर, सियालकोट सेक्टर, लाहौर सेक्टर, उसमें आई बॉल टू आई बॉल है फौजी. यहाँ पाकिस्तान नेवी का सिपाही, जिसको पाकिस्तान मरीन कहते हैं, हजारों स्क्वायर किलोमीटर के एरिया को फिजिकली होल्ड कर रही है, आई बॉल टू आई बॉल विद द एनिमी. फिक्र करने की जरूरत नहीं है. ऑफ कोर्स अपना काम जरूर करेंगे, वी कैन नॉट मैच विद देयर नंबर्स, बट इंशाल्लाह देयर इज नथिंग टू बी अफ्रेड ऑफ. वी हैव डन वेरी वेल एंड वी विल डू वेल इंशाल्लाह. थैंक यू.
I think there are no more questions. So Well, let's conclude then. Let me express my gratitude to Commodore Ubaidullah Sahab and Commodore Babar Bilal Sahab for an excellent analysis of the all aspects of 7th April incident, and also subsequently clarifying many confusions, many points, and answering to several questions raised by the audience. I'm once again thankful to all the participants for sparing their time and participating in this very important webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Very kind of you, sir. It was a pleasure having you here, and it's really nice to have interacted with you for the first time.
Thank you, sir. You're welcome. And the pleasure is all mine.